Well, good evening, interwebs. It is still the 24th, Friday. I made a promise to a commenter earlier in the day that I would talk a little bit about the HPV piece of the anal cancer that I have, because we had mentioned a couple of times that I tested positive in my tumor for two strains of HPV. They're called the P16 and the P40. So I'm going to work off memory here. I don't have it up in front of me. So as many of you know, cervical cancers, other cancers in that area, anal cancers, they can be caused by different strains of HPV, right? And P16 is one of the two most popular ones. The other one, I think, is P18. But the P16 is like really the most responsible one for the type of cancer I have. It's still a very rare cancer, but the P16 is like a really big indicator when they do the pathology of these types of tumors, and mine popped up with that. The tumor that I now have in my lung is still that same anal cancer coming from HPV, right? So a little bit about that. I'm 40, what year is it? I'm 42 now. I was born in 81. And I was diagnosed with this at 41, right? So Gardasil, if you've heard of that, is the HPV vaccine. Currently, it's called Gardasil 9. It protects against 9 different versions of HPV strains. That was released in the U.S. for mass use in 2006, if memory serves. I was already 25. The guidance from that time until now is that you can start giving the vaccine series as early as 9. The recommended age, I believe, is 11. And they say if you haven't completed the series by age 26, you should get it by then. But that after 26, it's not commonly recommended. I was 25 when it came out. I actually never even heard of it until about 2 or 3 years after that, just because I wasn't their target market. So I've never gotten the HPV vaccine. And here we are. And 2006, 2023, 17 years later, I have an anal cancer from one of the strains that Gardasil vaccine does protect against, right? So, that's a really interesting thing. But what it is that there are more than 100 different types of HPV, human papillomavirus, that can live in your body and grow. And a lot of them they might just cause genital warts. Some of them just lie dormant, and we pass them on through a host of different behaviors. You can even have protected sex and still be able to pass it on, right? So these HPVs, these different strains, they exist and they get passed on. Sometimes they're just dormant, they never show anything. And some of them are really the dangerous ones. And I just so happen to have had one of the dangerous ones. No one knows where you really get it from. You can be born with it. You can get it through other activities, right? HPV is not simply just a sexually transmitted disease. It can be transmitted sexually, of course, through the act of sex, just skin on skin, but you can get it in so many different ways. And so when we talk about the P16 HPV strain, sometimes you look it up, it's HPV 16. But that particular strain is amongst the two most common strains that will lead to some of these cancers in that area. So that just happens to be what mine is. And I don't know, because honestly I'm not a scientist in that field, I don't know exactly what it is in a P16 that is the thing that causes it to grow into tumors. I don't know why it's more dangerous than some of the other strains. Like, these are just questions that I've never gotten the opportunity to really research, and maybe I'll go do some reading on it and be able to share that in the future. But I think the important part with all this is that I had it. It could have been in my body the entire time I've been alive, and it just now decided that it was going to grow into a tumor and then metastasize and jump around my body and do what it's going to do, right? So I hope that little bit of information that I was able to share is a little helpful. So when you see us talk about that, you know that we're just talking about one of the strains of HPV that led to my cancer, right? One of the benefits of that, though, is that the type of cancer that it is was very responsive to the chemo radiation that I had in the fall. Very responsive. I mean, there's no evidence of that tumor at all, which gives me a ton of hope that even though it moved, it traveled to another part of my body, that the treatment choices that we're making are actually going to lead to eradicating that tumor as well. That's my hope. I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't hoping that, right? And my body has shown a very strong resilience to it. The first tumor was big. It's more than 4 inches long. It was 3 inches wide. Like, that is a large tumor. Our radiation oncologist referred to it as one of the biggest of its kind he's ever seen. He's been doing this for some time. That's pretty wild to me. And one round, 30 days of radiation, 10 days of chemo, 6 weeks of treatment was able to eradicate it. Now there's just some scar tissue. Of course, I'll be getting scans for a long time to make sure it stays away. So that just gives me a lot of hope, right? It's super rare. Now it's in my lung. But I'm very, very hopeful that my body will continue the good fight. So anyways, I hope some of that information comes in handy, right? If you were to ask me straight up, am I a proponent of the HPV vaccine? I will say unequivocally yes today. I will also say I spent a lot of time in my adult years working in healthcare, reading a lot of different research. Like, this is what I do. And I can tell you that I've questioned the long-term effects that we don't know from vaccinating 9, 10, 11-year-olds, and then what happens 20, 30 years down the road. Are there fertility concerns? Those questions have popped up. But I will say this. At the age of 25, if I could have gotten the vaccines and not had this cancer, I would have taken that shot. Again, I'll never criticize anybody for the choices that they make in their own healthcare and in their own lives. That's not why we exist. That's not why we're on the channels. That's not why we're sharing this. But I will tell you my thought process. And today, with anal cancer caused by a strain of HPV that the HPV vaccination back in 2006 protected against, I probably would have taken it in the off chance that I didn't contract it until after that. So do with that information what you will. I would recommend, if you decide to do any Google research, try to keep it simple. Just type in HPV 16 cancers, and then you'll get the lay terms. You have to be careful because when you type in things like HPV P16, strain, marker, anything like that, you start getting research studies. And I'm not saying they're not good. If you're the type of person that can read a research study and regurgitate it, great, do it. But for a lot of us, it doesn't hurt to just read the lay terms, right? Really just understand in common English, or whatever our language is, in common language, what it all means. And, I hope what I was able to share here is able to lead you down the path to really understanding it. Anyways, we're almost 9 minutes, so I'm going to give it up tonight. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Let us know. We are checking still. Every day, we're still commenting. If you find that an answer we might give in written in one of the comments, or especially on TikTok, which only gives us a few characters, let us know. We'll make a post like this. Okay. With that, I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll talk tomorrow.